Hey, everybody. Welcome to all new edition of House Calls the Podcast. It's your old buddy, Matty Waldron, here to talk to you about a little hiccup on our end. It was really on the recording software's end, but we had a little technical difficulty in the introduction of tonight's episode. Let me tell you what you missed. For 3 minutes, you heard Dr. Analogy, Dr. Soapbox talk about ice, what's going on in the country today with ice. And I was totally confused because I saw ice in my neighborhood, and he was talking about snow removal, not what's in the. Anyhow, is this a typical introduction with him making some analogy to sports life and how he is too important, he's too big to fail, and how his patients need him more than anybody else. So sorry about that, but let's pick up once we get it back online. Thanks. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of House Calls the Podcast. Today, my good friend, Dr. Ty House, also known as Dr. Tiger House or Dr. Love or Dr. of Good Times, and I are talking to our new friend, Ryan Morrissey. Ryan is the owner of Peak Fitness. You can find it on haveyouppeak.com, and I'm laughing because I couldn't get the full title off the top of my head like that. But Ryan, it's a cold Sunday morning. Thank you for being here. Thanks for coming in from lacrosse practice and putting the kids to the side and hanging out with Ty. Here we go for the interruption. Number one.
Did you just call him Brian after butchering the name of the business?
I don't know, did I? I think I said Ryan. I'm glad I didn't call him Morrissey, like some emo singer from back in the 80s. I didn't do that.
Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jesus.
The effort was
a little
there.
Aggressive today. You need some spirituality in your life. Anyhow, Ryan with an R.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so thanks for joining us. Tell us what's going on. Where do we find you? What's happening?
Cool. So yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. First of all, love what you guys are all about in your podcast. I think we're going to have many things to talk about today because I think there's a big kind of gap in, from the medical perspective, from the fitness perspective, from the average Joe trying to get in shape. I think the messaging that you guys have, first of all, to kind of highlight what you're doing on your podcast is phenomenal because there are some big gray areas, I'll call it, that aren't really filled. And we'll get into this deeper, I'm sure, as we get talking. But anyway, I love what you guys are all about. I can't wait to kind of wrap with you more about some of the things that you guys have already put out there. And hopefully, from my background in business and perspective, I can layer some additional things on here. But pumped to talk to you guys on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I just got in the door from lacrosse practice this morning. So I have my coaching brain on, which could be good or bad. I'm on about my, seventh coffee here. So this podcast could be an hour or 5, whatever you guys want to do.
Let's go.
So basically, I'm a trainer. Peak Custom Fitness Solutions is the full name. Most people call us Peak. It's a little easier. But we're over off the bottom of General's Highway, right by the Annapolis Mall. And we've been in that location since 2017. We opened in 2010. So we've been grinding in this industry for a while. And prior to that, I've been in the health and fitness industry since about 2003. So I know that dates me, and the gray a little bit is going to date me as well. But
Not
been
here.
doing this a while. Absolutely in love with the fitness industry. Obviously bleeds into sports and coaching. And now my kids are getting to the age where, they're involved in health and fitness and sports. All those things cross over, but work with adult clientele as well and work with people from all, shapes and sizes and abilities. And I love all of it, passionate about the industry and just love helping people. So that's kind of what we're all about.
Right on, man. I mean, you are preaching to the choir, and I'm going to be quiet because Ty hasn't been able to say anything in 3 minutes.
I just want to know where that passion started. Like how did it start when you were young?
That's a great question. So, I think a little bit of what we all have inside of us is genetic, maybe from our parents, a competitive nature, a passion for sports or whatever you're involved in. And, my dad's side of the family, a little more competitive sports background. And I think I definitely had that from a young age. So I was always involved in, everything outside. and things that we don't do anymore, like play pickup basketball and football in the backyard. And, I was doing from a young age. And then as I got older, you get a little more serious into the things that you enjoy or the things that you're more competitive in or better at. And my path as a kid took me into basketball. And it's funny because I coach my daughter in basketball as well. And she's 11, she's sixth grader. And I keep telling her that I didn't get serious into basketball until I was in seventh grade. I think I picked up a ball when I was in fourth in the backyard. Fifth, played for the local, I don't know if you guys remember it if you're from around here, but Optimist was the old
Oh yeah.
basketball organization in Annapolis. Played that in fifth grade. Sixth grade, a little more serious. And then by seventh grade, I was just completely hooked. So played seventh grade, eighth grade, played through high school at St. Mary's, and then played some small D3 ball at McDaniel College, which was formerly known as Western Maryland College. So, I think that's kind of where I got the passion for it. It was from sport. And I just wanted to carry that on into what I do now as a trainer.
Ryan, let me ask
Had
you,
a- yeah, go
when
ahead.
you got the love of basketball, were you a singularly focused just on basketball, or were you playing other things as well?
Yeah, I think like most kids, when you're younger, you're doing a little bit of everything. I think I picked up a baseball bat for a couple years. I think I was bored to tears in that, and then I played soccer for a while. I was skin and bones growing up, and my mom thought that if somebody got near me with a football pad, I'd break in half. So she tried to keep me in soccer as long as she could. And I went into school in high school at 5'11". I can't even say this out loud. 120 pounds. So if
What?
the wind blew, I'm going down. Um, so yeah, baseball when I was really young, quit that kind of early, played soccer for a while, and then got into, playing flag football and stuff like
That's
that.
hilarious.
So
Because Ty was 5'11", 120 in fifth grade. Such an awkward time for him.
That's not true. I was 110 pounds as a freshman in high school, 5'7".
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta set the record straight.
I might
So
have been leaner.
after college and playing
Mhm.
basketball, what did you jump immediately into fitness, or did you take a little while to find your way, what you wanted to do?
No, immediately. Yeah. Through, I'd say the end of high school into college, I kind of had a tough road with injuries. And that's what I think sparked the interest. When I was in college, I got my degree in exercise phys, but I was dabbling on going down the physical therapy path versus strength and conditioning. And I think the only reason, I love physical therapy. I work with five of them at work. I think my mindset at the time, I thought it would just be a little too boring. I thought it was going to be a little too slow. So I went down the strength and conditioning path. I had a bunch of injuries and some stuff that kept me out, had redshirted a year. So I knew I wanted to help people and use my, you know, journey, experience, failures to help them get ahead and avoid the things that I did. Um, and when I think it was our junior year. I took a January semester, training course and got a certification then as I was finishing up my major. And then I started working at Annapolis Athletic Club I actually got a job before they even opened their doors in 2003. So I was one of their first trainers there, and that's how I got my feet wet in the industry. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and then just kind of dabbled in the industry in different settings for about 6 or 7 years until I figured out that we were going to start peak and go down that path.
Right. And so when you start going down that path, there's so many facets, so many pieces of the
Right.
puzzle for fitness, right? As we've talked about,
Yep.
nutrition, weight, blah, 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 blah. What did you focus on? How were you able to kind of put it all together, make that cocktail? And what do you like to focus on right now? Or is it depending on your client?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
Thank
our industry,
you, Ty. No good questions out of you.
our that whole umbrella is endless, right? And our industry is changing or should be changing quickly with research and continuing ed. I mean, behind, let's say, technology, nothing else should be changing as quickly as knowledge of the body, and whether that's from medical or that's fitness or nutrition, all these things are changing. So I think, number one, the biggest way we hold ourselves back in our industry is when we think that we've learned something for good and we hold on to that and we're not willing to change. So things that I was doing or practicing, whether I learned it in college or I applied it from my own experience in sport and training, in 2003, some of those things I'm still using, and a lot of those things I owe apologies to my first 100 clients for using, right? So you have to be willing to change as you learn more information. So we have to be open-minded. So early on in my career, you don't know what you don't know. So when I came out of college, I'm used to competing at a collegiate level. I'm used to doing high intensity exercise, and I didn't know a thing about how to deal with disease management, how to deal with non-optimal biomechanics causing chronic aches and pains, nutrition strategies, my mindset, even though I had coursework on it, I was stuck in the what's great for optimal performance, not what's great for lowering A1C.
Hmm.
So along the last 23 years, there's been a ton of growth and learning, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there with your question, Matt. It's about your clientele. So I'm fascinated working with everybody, and I love a wide variety of clients to work with because it keeps you on your toes. So, when you guys just had, Blake Wood and Nick Manis in, right, on your podcast the last couple of weeks, and those guys are very high performers. And when I was working with Nick, he was in the MLL. So what Nick needs from a nutrition perspective, a training perspective, in the weight room, conditioning is maybe polar opposite of somebody that hasn't been off the sofa in 30 years. You have to be flexible and you have to be diverse with the knowledge that you have and how to apply that knowledge. So, there's no one quick way to answer that question.
Right.
It's growth in the industry.
With the different age groups,
Mhm.
I see a lot of people who are injured working out, and I always try to kind of counsel the injury you get from activity is way easier to treat
Sure.
than the disease you get from inactivity. It's
Love that.
usually you can
Mhm.
get over those things, but I do think that people who maybe are getting off the couch, they do struggle sometimes with understanding that some of these things are just a normal part of rebuilding your body. So I'm
Mhm.
curious, just how do you handle that with each different age group, going from the high performance high school or college athlete to the middle-aged athlete to maybe the senior citizen who's just
Mhm.
trying to stay healthy?
So what's more diverse is not just the age, it's their own experience and their own mindset. So if you have somebody who's 65 years old, but they grew up playing sports and they grew up, being active outside and they never let that go, they might have some age-related concerns, but their mindset is used to, discomfort, and they're used to competing. They're used to doing things that maybe you don't like to do to get a result that you're looking for that has a greater return on investment. So it's more of a psychology or a behavior change or angle that we need to really change our perspective with for the different client than it is just age, right? So if I have somebody that the last thing they did active was, the dreaded gym class in 8th grade that they couldn't stand, and they haven't been a lifelong exerciser and they haven't played a sport ever, well, anything uncomfortable to them is gonna raise a red flag, and they're gonna fear, any little ache and pain that they get. They've never had delayed onset muscle soreness, right? They've never pushed through, you know, buildup of acidity in their blood, right? They don't know what that feeling is. And that's more of a behavior and a psychological piece.
Now, you're talking about the psychological piece, and something we've touched on here is the power of social media. How do you combat that? Like, because I see it on social media, it doesn't mean it's right for me. I see people that are, doing, oh, I should only be eating protein, or, should be, walking with a, back, weighted vest for, 18 miles a day. It's, at the end of the day, it's really, what works best for you. But how do you professionally, kind of combat that?
Yep. Another good question there, Matt. I'm gonna give you two. Yeah.
We're not
So
competitive at all.
that is probably our biggest obstacle now. It's we live in a society right now where we have immediate access to information. But is that information accurate? Is it valid? And is it specific to you in your timeline and in your journey? And that's the big unknown, right? So we all meaning society would love to cut corners and we love to get immediate results and we don't want to be uncomfortable. and we don't want to have to commit to things long term in order to get the result we're looking for. And, you know, initially we have to feel out our client with what are they coming in with as a goal? What have they done physically to try to achieve that goal? What's their background? And then what are they coming in with with a perceived notion of what they need? And it's funny, if you just let people talk, you learn a lot about them because we're afraid of not knowing something. So all we want is to be able to work with like a clean slate, and we just want them to put their guard down. So, with social media, we try to have conversations teaching. Our biggest weapon in what we do, we have a small team of people that are passionate about what we do, and we're trying to provide as much information as we can to help people with their individual process and journey, and we need to meet them where they are. So all of my clients, and anybody that knows me, I'm not an opinion guy. Um, I'm an education and like objective measure guy. So
Nice.
any and all exercise can be great. Any and all nutrition strategies can be great. But when done for the wrong person at the wrong time, it might not be the result you're looking for. So it's understanding how it changes your physiology that then gives our clients the information to then like kind of provide for themselves and be their own advocate. Because I don't expect every client that we get to see me 5 days a week for the rest of their life. So I want to equip them with knowledge and information so then they can go on their Instagram account and start calling stuff out. And when they come back to us and say, "Hey, did you see this thing? What do you think about that? I thought that was kind of crazy." Like, it was crazy. Great job. That's not how it works. So it's education.
Right.
When I think of fitness, I have a tendency to break it into 3 categories, and I'm basically telling you this so you can tell me if I'm correct. Um, I think of it as flexibility, strength, and then cardiovascular. So the
Mhm.
stereotype would be the yogi, the runner, the power lifter.
Love it.
How do you handle, like, each group? Because you need all 3. So the classic
Mhm.
person is that stiff power lifter who has no cardio, or that weak runner, or the yogi who has no cardio. Like, how do you handle those groups, and is that too simplistic to think of it that way?
I think it's a great place to start. It brings to light those 3 big components, right? Now, you can break all those down into a lot more detail, but it's a great way to start with all of our clients. Now, the other thing we have to think about is what is the client coming in for? And when we think about competitive aspects of sport or exercise, sometimes competition doesn't always go well with well-rounded health. They don't mean the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that they need those 3. Maybe if you want to be I don't want to say average Joe. If you want to be a well-rounded fit person with quality of life and longevity in mind, then yes, you need a great balance of those 3 things. And there can be risk associated with not having one of those 3, right? But if you want to be a strong man, a power lifter, or I want excessive mobility for doing some sort of sport that requires it, then sometimes you have to be willing to give and take out of those 3 categories. But we also want to make sure that they understand that there could be risk associated with that, right? So another thing to think about with these 3 concepts is that people tend to be attracted to what they're good at. So your yogis probably didn't start out as, you know, fullbacks on the football team in high school, right?
Yep.
They started out as somebody that was probably born with laxity in their joints. They're mobile from a young age. Maybe they weren't a great explosive athlete on the soccer field or the basketball court, and they were attracted in maybe the next decade to doing some stuff that required a lot of mobility. And they're like, "Hey, I have mobility. This is great for me." So then they continue to get more mobility, which is exactly what they don't need. They already have enough. They need to be doing the thing that they are not good at, the other components that you mentioned, right?
Fine, I'm gonna
So
start lifting. That's what I need to do, and because I do way too much yoga. But you're right. It's finding that balance and fitting it all in your schedule.
exactly. Yeah.
Why
So we
is it
address.
when I tell
Yeah,
you for 3 years you should be lifting, Ryan says it for 10 seconds, and now you're all of a sudden joining Gold's Gym?
Because look at him. Look
Okay.
at him versus you.
Okay. So I'll
All
buy
right.
a House Calls
it-
podcast, tank
it's the
top.
All
camera.
right.
The
Done.
camera adds
Done.
20 pounds of
Done.
muscle. So when people come into our facility, we start with something called a movement consultation. So we take them through a bunch of different movement screenings, and we're testing those things. So we're looking at how much joint play do we have? What kind of muscular range of motion do we have? Or do we have any hip asymmetries, right? So those screenings early on help us to determine the starting point. And then we immediately flip that around and we teach. So when somebody leaves our gym for the first session, they learn about themselves as we learn about them, right? We're not a cookie cutter plate. We're doing whatever the person needs, but we need to learn from them first. So when we figure out what their limiting factors are, we flip it around and we teach them a strategy to help address those things day one. So hopefully they leave with the understanding that, oh, I may be very bendy, but I have no joint stability. And if I go step off my front steps and there's ice on the ground, I'm an ACL risk factor person, right? Because I don't have any stability. I can't tighten down and stabilize when I get an unstable surface or land on one leg. And we have somebody that's, tight as a drum and super strong, right? But every time they do their heavy squats, they're exceeding their range of motion in their hip joints and their pelvis is tucking under them, they're rounding their back. Well, that person is going to be in with an ortho in the next couple of years if they keep doing that because they're going to blow a disc in the low back. So then we want to address their mobility concerns. So to kind of circle up, that's where we start the journey with them. And we take into account their wants for their fitness goals, which may not be their needs. We tell them about their needs. And in a perfect world, we both give a little bit and we find a path that works for that.
And now, do you cater that if they have an activity, and that activity could be anywhere from their marathon runner to somebody who's older and just wants to get another decade playing tennis, or somebody who loves to ski? Do you cater for their thing that they're competing for, not even competing for, but their
Yeah,
hobby?
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's what makes life, right?
Yeah.
We want to have a smile on our face being able to do the hobbies and activities that we enjoy. So we look at, their wants, we look at their body's needs, and then the third tier of that is the demands of the activity or the sport. And we outline those. And whether that's playing tennis, playing pickleball, playing collegiate football, whatever it is, we want to define those things. We want to, measure as much as we can so we can set some, objective goals. And then we come up with a training program that addresses those things. And the way that we look at training, we're going to look at long-term planning and then we're going to work backwards. So just like you do with preseason, off-season, and in-season training programs with athletes, we do the same with all of our adult clients. We think of training as, there's a reason our logo is a big pyramid, because we think of training as building our base of that pyramid first. And if we don't build that foundation first, the fun stuff is the Instagram, YouTube channel peak of that pyramid, box jumps and throwing med balls around and all that. That only works if you build all the phases behind that. And then you can have success doing the top. So we look again at everybody as a long-term journey, and whether that's 6 months to a sport or season or a decade to go from where you are now to where you really want to be.
So my next question is about kind of like lifetime fitness with athletes. And
Mhm.
I can honestly remember back when I was in high school and college, I thought the only reason to lift was to get ready for football season and wrestling season. And the only
Yeah.
reason to run was to get ready for lacrosse season. So if I saw
Yeah.
somebody in the gym who wasn't on a team, I was like, what in the world are they doing? Like
Mhm.
it was such a foreign concept to me,
Yeah.
so much so that I played college lacrosse with my cousin. He was a senior when I was a freshman. And the summer after he graduated, I saw him going for a run. And I was like, what in the world is he doing? He never has to run again. Why is he
Yeah.
doing this? And then because I had mentors like that around, I was kind of like, well, I guess that's what we do now. We graduate from college and we go for runs. Like I was like, that's
Yeah.
just the thing. So you are around all these high performance young athletes. Do you lay the foundation of don't stop working out ever? Because I do see that. I see the person who they graduate and they keep playing forever. And then I see the person who doesn't do anything for 20 years in their middle age orthopedic injury. They're
Mhm.
blaming it on their fact that they played high school softball. And I'm like, high school softball has nothing to do
Mhm.
with this problem of you laying on a couch for 20 years.
Exactly. Yeah, we see that frequently. What's funny is, and I don't, maybe that's just in our little circle, but what I've seen is the higher the level of collegiate performer or pro, or even, somebody that's had a great high school career, all county, all state, all whatever, and then it ends there. It ends at their peak. They're harder to get to buy in to
Hmm.
Lifetime Fitness than the person like myself. It's funny, we have a training staff of people that we have one person that was extremely successful at all ages, all sports, and then everybody else was like me, like injury-riddled career, and we all become trainers because of that,
Yeah.
because we want somebody else to get it better than we had it, right? So the people like me, we weren't done. Like it was taken from us
Right.
because for we had some acute injuries that we couldn't prevent or we didn't have the right treatment, whatever it was. We get out of college and we're still hungry.
One of the coolest examples that you see in the media of the Lifetime Fitness is these football announcers who are offensive linemen who have
Yep.
totally changed their body. Like they
Yeah.
Correct.
just they shrink down from their football body to their lifetime body. And it's
Hmm.
kind of cool to see that trend going. Have you treated anybody like that? Who's like, I'm
Yeah.
no longer playing this sport. Now I want my body that's going to carry me through life.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what endurance athletics pulls people into, which is, I think, good and bad. Um, I think that a lot of people, when they're back into, let's say, fitness after their competitive career, and if that thing they were competitive in was very specific, like an offensive lineman, right? Like a goalie in lacrosse, something that was very specific with the type of training, and now there isn't a reason to do that specificity. It's like, where do I go? Well, let me do something that's maybe easier with intensity, but now I'm just going to push volume and I'm going to do things really long. And they
Right.
look at it as longer is better. And I'm not saying that's bad, but it's another very specific way of training. So whether that's marathon, right? These turn into like bucket list goals now. Ironman, right? Swimming across the bay. So they go hard left or right and go into that endurance fitness, which is great. And yes, we've seen people like that. We help people like that, and that is awesome. But if people go down that path, there are also dangers with that, as I'm sure you see as a patient base, right?
Yeah.
We lose anything fast twitch that we had. We lose the ability to generate force quickly. We lose the ability to change direction. So now when your endurance athlete for 30 years that's been going down that path picks up a tennis racket or they go get in the backyard and run around with their kids playing lacrosse, that's your popped Achilles, right? That's your torn meniscus because they haven't changed direction in 30 years. So they're all great paths. In a perfect world, if everybody wanted lifelong high level performance, we'd have a blend. Like you said, it's back to what you were saying a second ago, Ty. It's mobility. We'd have our resistance training, right? We'd have our conditioning, but that conditioning, I would want to see run the gamut from slow and low and long to short and fast, and keep the short and fast stuff as long as you can. Because as soon as you stop using it, you lose that. So it's really hard to sprint 100 meters and not rip your hamstring off your pelvis if you haven't done it for 20 years,
Yeah.
right? So if we can keep that blend as long as we can, I think we can guarantee your ability to participate in anything you want to do as long as you can continue to do those things, right? And that means a lot for a lot of parents out there with kids.
We actually did a sprint challenge with that same concept, trying to
Yep.
get people to be like, don't stop sprinting. Like you're still human.
Yeah.
You should still be able to sprint, maybe not quite as fast as you used to be able
Hmm.
to, but it's a great workout. And just
Yeah,
because you're 35 now doesn't mean you can't run hard. But
exactly.
you got to do all the precautions, prepare and stretch and start slowly and all those things.
100%. You were just trying to get more business, weren't you?
He
Yes,
was. It's everything
exactly.
he does.
Yeah.
It's always
So to
about.
switch gears a little bit, you
Yeah,
mentioned that you were just coaching your daughter in lacrosse
yeah.
this morning. So I do want to talk about children and how that's changed. And my philosophy is people sign up for sports and it's all about, hey, let's keep sports fun. But in
Mhm,
the real world, to keep having fun, you do have to advance your skills. You have to advance your fitness, or you're not going to make the team to keep having fun.
mhm.
So I grew up coaching my kids. I'm about to have
Oh,
grandkids.
cool. Oh,
Let's
congrats.
talk about the young kids before they're into the big time sports. What do you have any thoughts on early kids, what they should be doing as far as learning movement, learning how to use their body, that kind
Ty
of
wants them out there doing kettle lifts and
thing?
box jumps right now. He doesn't
Love it.
understand. Has,
Oh my God. I mean, he's already
I
worried.
did ask
His
my
grandchild won't be born until July, and he's already got like a training regimen for this kid. It's
Yeah. Get
insane.
that kid
I did
walking.
ask
Let's
my
go.
daughter to play the Rocky theme song by her stomach, and she insists that the child can't hear until till she's 7 months pregnant or something. I'm like, no, the kid will know.
Yeah. There's no research done on that. She doesn't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Well, one way we're gonna find out. Let's
No,
go.
no,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I guess what I'm getting at is I'm going with the idea that maybe you don't have to sign your kid up for club lacrosse in the second
Mhm.
grade. Maybe some of these balance sports would be better. I'm not
Mhm.
actually thinking like gymnastics, martial arts. It's like you're still doing the activity, but you don't have to specifically play a certain sport in the third grade. Do you have any
Yes.
thoughts on that?
No, many thoughts. Yeah. This is a conversation we have at work every day.
Yeah.
So the youth sports conundrum. So from a body perspective, I think that the longer we give diversity to the body for our growing young athletes, and start out at 4, 5, 6 years old, right? Just get into activities, things that require, like you mentioned, balance, coordination, general fitness, changing direction, learning fundamental movement patterns that are important for every single sport. If you look at young kids pick up toys, and I'm talking like 3 years old, look at those kids squat. That is a beautiful thing, right? Somewhere along the line, we lose that ability. So keeping those things going and providing some instruction to move your body well. Learn how to lunge, learn how to hinge, learn how to balance on one leg, hopping, things like that are critical to highlight at young ages. And, I think you were hinting there, both you guys, that we get the cart ahead of the horse with sports, and we immediately try to get structured skill development for the sport and specificity in way too early. And we lose the ability to move our bodies well, right? But early on, I think our jobs as parents or grandparents is to focus on the things that we should really be doing, and that's getting our kids the ability to go out, have fun, try hard things and fail, and to be comfortable doing that, and do that in a wide variety of activities. So whether that's martial art, I think martial arts is phenomenal for everybody, but especially young kids, right? We learn discipline, we learn body control, we get mobility, right? We get like a plyometric effect from that. That's a great thing, core development. You take that kid that's done that and then has maybe played a field sport, doesn't matter what it is, soccer, lacrosse. They're running around all the time. They're moving in space. They're getting conditioning, right? We're getting quick reactions. We're getting the ability to catch and throw, whether it's with your hands or your feet, right? All those things are blending to build a really good foundation for successful sport later. And what we're doing wrong as a society is we're quickly trying to either accelerate our skill development and take that away from free play. And we take them away from these settings where we learn all these like life lessons. That's why we're playing sports in the first place. The other
Nope.
tough thing that we see with youth sports development and, talking club lacrosse, club soccer's been crazy forever, travel baseball, all AAU basketball. We've accelerated the fact that wins matter early, and it's done a detriment to all sports, right? And it's so funny because we don't listen to the people that know this more than anybody, the D1 coaches, the pro coaches, the ex-pro athletes. I mean, they're screaming at all of us saying, stop doing what you're doing. We want multi-sport athletes. Get skill development, right, broad, before you need to be on the best team that travels everywhere. Learn how to play the game, play pickup, right? Do these things that they're telling us to do, and we're just blatantly saying no. So we care way more, we meaning society, cares way more about what team we're on at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, what tournament you won, what's the color of the shiny new helmet you get, versus what's the lesson you're getting this year. Are you learning how to run with your eyes up and see defense? Are you working on your fitness and understanding that that's a piece, right? When you're outside of practice, you actually have to do something. Are you integrating healthy nutrition behaviors at home in your household, which will pay dividends lifelong, right? Are you learning how to take whatever your skill development is now and grow from there through accountability in your backyard? Are you learning fundamentals, right? When we see the best teams at young ages, they're cherry-picked teams, right? So you're picking if it's 7 or 8 years old, who's the best kid? It's not the kid that has the best lacrosse IQ and skill development. You're 7 or 8. It's the kid that's the biggest now, or the kids that's came out of the womb fast,
Right.
right? In defense, it's 7 years old, doesn't know how to come out, break down, close out, take an angle, right? So you've highlighted a kid that has a gift, that hasn't earned it. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing for that kid, but if that kid goes to an A team and now they're cherry picked with a bunch of other kids, now you've got all these kids that are great for one reason. It's a disservice to them because it doesn't develop their weaknesses,
Right.
right? Because they're already great. Nobody can stop them.
Well, it's
And it,
interesting, to that point, I cut you off now, but it's, when my girls used to play lacrosse, early on, it used to drive me nuts. You had to make 3 passes, and then you could shoot, and everyone would be like, "You're hot, you're hot." So it told the kid with the ball after the 3rd pass, "Go to the goal." Even though there was somebody open on the crease,
Mhm.
to make that one extra pass, kids didn't know to do it because all the parents were like, "Go to the goal, you're hot, you're hot." And you're like, that's not lacrosse. That's not, teaching
Yeah,
the team. And that's the message. And it's really sad that we've got away from that.
it is. I coach my daughter in basketball right now, and we played. We're like 500 right now, and we're playing in the appropriate league against the appropriate competition, and it's great. And
Right.
losing is as much of a win as winning, right? And that's where you learn your lessons. And last week we won a game in triple overtime.
Oh my.
But a girl knocked down a jump shot, a great shot, with 6 seconds left. And it was exciting. It was awesome. It was fun to watch. We played a team that we were way better than. We played undisciplined basketball, and we had a lot of unforced turnovers, and it wasn't a growth day. We won a very exciting game, and, we get one in the win column. But I leave that game, pumped for the girl that knocked the shot down, great confidence boost for her. Yeah, it's great to get a W, but, like, that was a lost day
Right.
because we didn't grow. We didn't do what we worked on in practice, and it wasn't something I left driving home happy about. Yesterday, we got beat by first or second place team in the league. I think we were tied at halftime, right? They ran away at the end, took a loss, but we played them with heart, with passion, with discipline. They had girls that were literally double like height and weight as our girls, and we're trying to box out, just getting murdered. But we didn't run away from it. We competed. And I was prouder of our girls yesterday than any win,
Yeah.
any accolade that you can get out there because we grew. We grew yesterday. And that's what it's all about at young ages, and that's what we're
Sure.
missing.
I think there's a movement out there that's always like, just let the coaches coach, let the coaches coach. But I do think that the parents or friends or mentors do have a role. And I've got a couple kids that I think about where the first of all is the late bloomer. Like, you do not want that kid quitting because he
Mhm.
hasn't grown yet. Like, you
Right.
want them working on the skills. They're not going to be a star, learn the skills until they bloom. But then there's the early bloomer. And I
Mhm.
saw plenty of times where I was coaching and maybe a kid was scoring 20 points in basketball or 5 goals in lacrosse, but not one of those skills was gonna work when the other kids called up. So, like, those
Totally.
kids who might be the star of the team, they need somebody coaching them to be like, "Hey, you gotta be working on all these other skills." And
Mhm.
then the other kid is maybe, maybe you're not as athletic, you're not gonna make the high school basketball team, but there's alternative sports that are great lesson learners, great way to stay fit. You wanna kinda guide those kids to something that, "Hey, not as many people play this sport, you could be super successful." What are your
Yeah.
Totally.
thoughts on that?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think, isn't that the role of a parent? Trying to open up your kids to every possibility to find whatever their thing is. I mean, if it's acting in the play or yearbook or martial arts or playing rugby. I mean, I think that's your job as a parent, is to kind of open them up to all possibilities.
Well, I think one of the things that we get sucked into as parents, grandparents, close family members, friends, we feel good when our kids are smiling,
Sure.
right? Makes you happy, satisfaction. And, a lot of my friends make fun of me for this one, but making my kids or seeing my kids smile only makes me smile when that smile is earned, right?
Yeah.
So as parents, I think our number one job is to determine the difference between what's a good decision and might be difficult, and it's not going to make you smile now, but the feeling or the emotion that you're going to be rewarded later is 10 times that feeling that you have right now. And this is something that's making you smile, but as soon as it's taken away in 30 seconds, you're going to forget that you even had it. Right. So I have a conversation all the time with my kids, and we talk about what's earned versus what's given are completely different things.
And everything's a good life lesson, and your message is that as well, right? Figure out what works, throw away the stuff that doesn't work, and know that it's a process. And so I
Agreed.
think that's the takeaway for me.
And
I
it
appreciate
the
that.
lessons might not play out on the field. It might be his
Right.
career when he's 40 years
Mhm.
old, or his being a parent. It's kinda
Mhm.
like some of those pressure moments you learn in sports, they give you experience for when you're in your real life down the road.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Ryan, this has been great. And we're definitely gonna have you back because you speak our language, and
Well, thank you very much.
we really do appreciate your time.
Where I easily could have spoken for 5 hours on
I
this
know.
Tom
Oh, good.
Enjoyable,
Yeah.
and,
Thank you, guys.
it actually opened even more questions of stuff I'd love to talk about in the future.
Yeah,
Well,
and
would
we'll
love
definitely
round
do
2.
that. We'll
Yeah.
definitely do that. Yeah,
Well,
no,
thanks a
there's I
ton,
mean,
guys. Yeah, greatly appreciate your time on a
this
Sunday
is just too
here,
big of a
and,
topic, probably to knock
agreed.
out in an hour or 45
But let's
minutes.
finish off with how do people find your
Yep.
team, if they
Uh-huh.
want a trainer? So what's the best way
Yeah.
to get to you?
Yeah, so probably our website. It's haveyouppeaked.com. And the answer to that is no. No one has peaked. We're still going. Don't quit. You haven't peaked in college. So haveyouppeaked.com, or you can shoot us an email at info@haveyouppeaked.com, and I can respond to you and talk about your journey and what can help you. We're a zero pressure place, all about education and helping you kind of take steps forward, and we'll meet you wherever you are. We're also on Instagram at Have You Peaked, and you can check out what we're all about. So
Awesome.
appreciate the time, guys. This was
Yeah,
an
no,
awesome
thank
talk,
you.
and would love
Yeah.
round 2 if you ever want to do it.
Yeah, Ryan, very appreciative. Thanks very much, buddy.
All right, take care.